everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Stampin' Up with Jamie. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Just going to make sure I'm live in the right spot and follow along with comments here. So let me just bring up my computer. Perfect. Okay, good. How is everyone doing tonight? You're gonna look at this and go, wait, didn't we do this last week? This is exactly how we started last week. So tonight, last week I made this card here, okay? And so I figured I had this guy and I never showed him how to make it. And I figured that's what we would do tonight, because it's still brand new product. It is a week old, but it is still brand new. Hi, Amy and Karen and Terry. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it so much. So again, this is the card we made last week. If you're not sure or want the details or whatnot, the video is saved on my Facebook page and it's also posted in my YouTube channel. So you could look for me either of those places and you would see how we made this card here. We made it last week. I did stamp the inside. I don't usually, but I did. Hi, Michelle. Good evening. Hey, Shannon and Chris. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. So again, I'm not going to go into the details about this card. It does use overlapping product to what we're going to use tonight. But I'm not going to go into details. I already did that and you can check out those videos. So tonight I thought I would show off this guy here. He's really cute. First of all, I just love this sentiment. You're one in a million. It's just fun to send to a friend or someone that you're just thinking about or someone that comes to mind and you want to maybe just cheer them up and send them a card. It does feature lots and lots of products. So I'm not going to go into quite as detail as I did last week. Details are out on my blog. And again, I said all this last week. So you can always check back in last week's video here on Facebook or on my YouTube channel. Either one works. But okay, so this is the stamp set. It is the Quite Curvy stamp set. It's part of a bundle that will be available. It's actually part of two bundles. It gets a little confusing. I'm hoping I can explain it and not completely lose you guys. But so the Quite Curvy is part of its own bundle. Okay, it's part of the Quite Curvy Bundle and it coordinates with the curvy dies. This is brand new product. It's a super sneak peek pre-order that will be available to customers beginning November 3rd. It will carry over into the January to June catalog. These two here. It will carry over as the bundle, but it's kind of like a super sneak peek, get your hands on it super early, promotion, Quite Curvy stamp set bundle. It is, and then another part of it, this is where it gets a little confusing, is we have the Curvy Christmas stamp set. Okay, the Curvy Christmas stamp set will be available as well as the Quite Curvy Bundle. Have I lost you yet? On November 3rd, and this will be available until January 4th. Okay, January 4th. So November 3rd to January 4th, that's your window to buy it. And then the third product, excuse me, that will be available is the Classic Christmas Designer Series paper. There are 3 different colors in this pack. It's a 6x6. It will be available again November 3rd to January 4th. Okay, this will be sold. You can buy this separately, but if you want everything, it's like the mega bundles. It's the bundles of all bundles. It's, you can get the Quite Curvy stamp set, the curvy dies, the Curvy Christmas stamp set, and the Classic Christmas Designer Series paper. This is going to be sold as one big bundle beginning November 3rd to January 4th. One big bundle. I think it's called the Quite Curvy Variety Bundle, if I'm not mistaken. And, if you buy it from me in the month of November, I have a sweet special that I'm going to run. I'm working on the graphics for it. I have everything ready. I'm just working on the graphics. And as soon as I get them done, I will post about it. But I'm kind of putting a plug in your ear now. If you buy the Quite Curvy Variety Bundle, say that 10 times fast, in the month of November from me, you will get a special little something from me. So having said all that, it's a little confusing. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm sure you do. I try to explain it on my blog, but it's always kind of hard to explain in writing sometimes. So feel free to jot me an email, a message, however, and I'd be happy to help you. Oh, it's stormy. I'm sorry, Heather. Oh, goodness. Hi, Evanel. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. So my card tonight is Petal Pink. Petal Pink is my favorite pink. I love it. It's kind of on the peachy side, but it's just really soft and pretty without it being like cutesy or baby. I don't think it's too baby. So my card base is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. Okay. I'm going to leave it this way. Now, I used to not do this. I think I say this every time because maybe you're like me and you didn't do it this way. But before, if I had like an embossed card front, I would just emboss the front of my card here. But as you know, that can then warp your paper and make it a little bit, you know, it could also kind of shrink it depending on what embossing folder you're using if there's a lot of detail. So I learned from Amy that I took a separate piece of Petal Pink cardstock, 4 1/4 by 5.5. That's kind of like my standard card front. And I already embossed it. So I embossed it with the Pinewood Planks embossing folder. It's been around for a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure it doesn't catch a glare. But I love, this is one of my favorite embossing folders. I use it super, super, super ton. I love it so much. And we're just going to adhere that to the card front. Oops. Oops. Take the cap off. Okay. So that goes on my card front. I guess I could be using the Stampin' Seal Plus. I just realized I'm not. This should do it though. Oh, you like storms. Oh, that's fun. I like snowstorms. I don't really like rainstorms, but I like snowstorms when you're kind of like stuck at home and it's just, you're forced to stamp. Maybe that's why I like snowstorms so much, because you can't do a whole lot, and so you're like, oh, looks like I have to sit down and make a card. Oh well, that's just a pity. You know what I mean? So, okay, let's start building all this fun stuff here. Let me get my dies. Okay, so we need the curvy dies. Hey, Lori, good evening. Thanks for joining me tonight. And we're going to use this guy here. I talked a lot about him last week, but I'm going to touch base. I'm just going to like touch on it again. And then we're also going to need this guy here. Well, and the birds. I'm going to leave the birds for now. Oh, you know what? I just realized I didn't grab, hold on. I always forget something. I swear, every week I forget to grab something. You need a panel for the leaves. Okay. So let's do this first. Here's the die that I'm going to be using, and I talked about it last week, so I'm going to just like briefly touch on it. What did you say? Snowstorms are great as long as you're home and not driving. That is true. That is very, very true. Oh, you don't like snow? Oh, I love snow. Snow is like my favorite. Just again, if I'm not going out in it, I like to just stay home and look at it and, you know, let someone snow blow my driveway so I don't have to. Okay, this curvy die here, keep in mind that only one side of it, you can see this side that has like this little lip on it, the edge, that's the side that cuts out. Okay, so it's funny because I said all this last week, and then the other day I was crafting with this exact die and I totally put it on wrong, and I'm like, why didn't it give me like these bubbles? Oh, because I did it the wrong way. So like, do as I say, not as I do, but just keep in mind that depending on if you have this lip on the top or on the bottom is if you're going to have the bubbles or no bubbles. So if you missed last week's card, right? Same die, but this like was one side, so it gave me the bubbles, and then this was the other side, so it didn't give me the bubbles. I'm calling them bubbles. That's probably not a really great description of it, but I think they look like bubbles. Okay. Here's the thing about this card. My Whisper White here is 5 1/4, I think. Yes, 5 1/4. And I said this last week again, I'm going to say that a lot probably, that depending on where you put your die is going to be the extremeness? No, what's the word I want? The degree, whatever kind of curve, okay? So if I put my die like this, I have a more drastic curve, but I could also do it like that and have not so much of a drastic curve. I kind of want something in between. So I'm going to go, I have a little mark there. Do you see that? I'm going to use this side of my paper. Thank goodness paper has two sides, right? I think I'm going to go for something like that. And when we're using these dies, keep in mind it's a little challenging to get like 2 cards exactly the same, just because, you know, there's so many factors that go into like how you position this. And then I just kind of tapped it on my table and it gets most of the little dots out. But they were everywhere all over my desk here the other day. I mean, there still are. There's like little dots everywhere. It's kind of fun. So this is what you're left with. I think is this a little longer? Oh, see, my curve is a little different from my sample one here. Okay, so let's go ahead and stamp our sentiment. Now, depending, and again, I went through this last week, depending on the slope, that's the word, slope. You can tell I'm not a skier. As much as I'd like, no, I don't ski. So depending on the slope of your curve, your sentiment may not necessarily match. Sorry, I'm trying not to get glares. May not necessarily be at the same slope, degree, whatever. But this actually is pretty spot on. I don't know if you can see that. That's pretty good. Keep in mind this is photopolymer. So if my slope was a little different, I could just take it off and like fix it and like adhere it down there. If I actually wanted the sentiment to be like straight, I could make it do that. If I wanted a straight sentiment, I kind of pull it a little bit, give it a little bit of tension, push it down, and then I have all of a sudden a straight sentiment. So something to keep in mind. I kind of like my sentiments to be at the same angle. So I played with it ever so slightly to make sure I was kind of at the same curvature. Is that another word? I feel like these are kind of borderline mathematical terms, and you all know how well I do with that. I'm going to stamp the sentiment in soft suede. It's a nice, like, dark brown. Okay, I am so sorry. I think I'm going to take this off. Hold on. I'm going to remove this for a second. Okay. I have like this like miniature light that I can add to my phone to add just a little bit of illumination. But I think the glare is more annoying than anything, so we'll just take that right off. Okay, perfect. It's our sentiment. You're 1 in a million. Oh, it was a little high on the your, but that's okay. It's still pretty good. Okay, so we're going to set this aside just for a second. I want to kind of do all my stamping. We got to stamp this big vine. Will that fit on the cardstock I have? Woo, barely. And here's my suggestion, okay? If you are stamping something and then something that requires a lot of coloring, I mean, that's not a lot of coloring, but it's not like these birds, you know? It takes a little bit. And then you have to cut it out. My suggestion is that you stamp it in whatever you're stamping it in. In my case, I'm stamping it in the Memento Black first. I mean, obviously, irregardless, you have to do that first. Wow, this guy barely fits. I'll give you the measurement of this because I always forget to do it, and inevitably someone asks and I don't know. So this Whisper White is 2.5 by 5 1/4. So before I color, okay, let me get all the little things off. I cut it out because this happened to me. If you take all the time to color it and then maybe your die is a little off and it's, you know, frustrating because then you took all that time to color it and then it didn't cut out right. So if it's something small, I don't worry about it, you know, something that's not too time consuming. But if it's something that takes a little bit of time, stamp it, cut it out, and as long as it's like good alignment and in the right spot, ooh, which mine is, you can go ahead and color it. There's nothing more frustrating than stamping something this big, coloring it, and then realizing that it cut wrong and having to do it all over again. I speak from, like, I know the feeling. It's extremely frustrating. So this is our vine, and I didn't think to do it ahead of time, guys. You did that today. Oh my goodness, Amy, I'm so sorry. Isn't it frustrating? Oh, it's so frustrating. So I don't know. When I remember, sometimes I don't remember, and then it doesn't cut right, and then I'm like, oh sugars, I forgot my own trick. Again, it's one of those do as I say, not as I do. But stamp the image, cut it out. And as long as you have a good cut image, then go ahead and color. You can always, I mean, it's not hard to color these images that are always cut. It's not, it doesn't like pose an inconvenience. So I'm coloring my leaves. I want a nice bright color. It's funny, depending on like the mood of my card and what I'm kind of going for is, you know, I think it affects the color I choose, especially, you know, there's a number of greens that I could have picked, but I wanted something really bright and cheerful. I knew I was going to use petal pink. So I'm going with Granny Apple Green. And people use their Stampin' blends in different ways. I tend to go first with the light, and then I add some dark tones, some not highlights, some lowlights with the dark version of the marker. And then I come back and blend it. So I'm not, and you're gonna see I only did half of this. Partly why I only did half at a time, because our markers are blends. They're supposed to blend together. So, you know, I add one color and then another. And as long as my ink is still wet, they will pretty much completely blend together. Now, sometimes you'll still see a little line, it happens, but it won't be like a stark line. It'll pretty much blend. So I only do little bits at a time, working in small spaces. The markers do have two sides. They have a more brush side, which I'm using right now, which is great to cover big spaces, big coloring where you have to cover lots of ground. And then there's a more fine point end, which is great for your more detailed stamping, tight spaces, things that you just need a little bit more control. Of course, we do have the, what's it called? What is this called? The color lifter. If you are worried about possibly coloring outside of the lines, I mean, it happens to all of us. I always have my color lifter right next to me when I'm coloring. If you color outside the lines, you can just add some of this and it lifts it right up. It's like a little magic eraser. So which is great. And I try, honestly, I'm not overthinking this. You can tell I'm throwing this ink on here. I try to do like little squiggles because then you don't tend to get a stark line. I don't know. These are things I tell myself. I don't know if they're really true or not. You've never seen the markers before, Lindsay. Oh my goodness. These are our Stampin' blends. They're alcohol based, right? Yes, alcohol based. They're amazing. They're great for coloring. So I'm not a huge fan of coloring. I find it a little overwhelming, but these markers are very, very forgiving and they're really easy to use. So if you're just starting with markers and coloring, I highly, highly suggest our blends. They do come, each color comes in two. So there's a light version and a dark version. And there is a brush end. Oh, hold on. Let's do it this way. There's a brush end and then a fine tip end. Again, this is great. Like if you're, well, you know what? I forgot to, let's use soft suede. There's a little bit of vine, like not leaf, whatever that is called, branch. So I definitely want the more fine tip end for that. Okay. A little bit more control. I love these things. I use them a lot. There's lots of colors. Not all of the colors have blends. But they're great because you can also layer your colors. What do I mean by that? Is that there's two markers, but hold on, let me show you. This is really fun. This is a total tangent. I love tangents sometimes though. Okay. So you can like apply one like layer of color, right? That's our light. We could apply a layer of dark, right? But the second, we could just keep layering up our light and that makes that dark as well. So, and we could whoops, don't do that, what I just did. Then you could layer up your dark and you'd have, just with two markers, you already have like a variety of color there. And then if you want, you just come in and I usually do like circles, like be friends, merge together, right? And you have like a nice gradient of color. Now that's pretty quick. Keep in mind that they do tend to bleed through the back, so you're going to want to use like grid paper on the bottom or something to protect your workspace, your desk or wherever you're working. Okay. Yay, we all love our blends, right, Terry? We really do. Kim agrees too. I love them. Okay, so having done all that, so we have this, we have this, we have this. Now let's do the other little, what do they call them? Curves. Curvy, squishy swirls. I have a panel of soft suede and a panel of crumb cake. These both are 5 1/4 wide. Now, the height, I literally just happen to have these scraps, so that's how high they are, because I'm probably going to trim them down. It's really hard for me to say right now how high they need to be, because again, depending on where you put your curve, it's always going to be a little different. There's always going to be a little bit of a variable when you're using these. So just keep in mind, I tend to leave mine higher, and then I can always trim it down, as opposed to having like a thinner piece of cardstock and then having to do it all over again because it was too small. Okay, so I did this last week, but let me show you. Oh, hold on. First, we use this one. I want to keep with the same curvature as my Whisper White here. So easy to color with. Sometimes I just color to relieve stress. I hear you, Heather. Yep. Yeah, and they're just really user friendly. I find like they're not overwhelming. It's like I can do this. Okay, so this way. So again, depending on the height and how we put our curve is the different kind of curve we're gonna get. I should have done a prize to see how many times I'm gonna say the word curve tonight. Needless to say, a lot. So what I'm going to do is I have my Whisper White butted up right next to my crumb cake. They are layered on each other. They're the same width. And then I'm just going to put my die right up next to it. And that's the same degree that I need to cut it at. So then I'm going to pull my Whisper White off, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine, and it's going to cut it at the same man, I wish I knew what these technical terms were, whatever that is, that slope, the same slope as this. Okay, does that make sense? So I'm going to do it off screen, and then we'll have to do the same thing for the soft suede. Again, these are all the same width. And let me just quickly do this one, and then we'll do the other one, and then we'll put them together, and it'll be one big happy family. So here's that one. Now they're the same height pretty much, but I can kind of like that, and no one will know the difference, honestly. Well, you and I will, but no one else will. Don't tell anyone. Steepness of the slope, is that it? Steepness? I don't know, Heather. That sounds right. I mean, you say it and I'll agree with you. I don't know. I never know like the technical terms here. I really just make things up as I go along, as they make sense in my head. So same thing, my Whisper White is right over my soft suede. My soft suede is 5 1/4 wide. And I'm going to, oops, that one moved a little bit. And I'm going to put my die right up next to it, slip this guy off, run it through, and it's going to give me the same steepness of the slope as Heather says. I'll believe you. You say it, and I just want to double check it. You say it, and I will agree, and it will be official because we said it. Okay, I'm glad I did that again. It did move ever so slightly when I put it on my die cutting machine. Okay, run this through. So again, all this product is going to be available November 3rd. Okay, and if you buy the can I say it? Hold on. The Quite Curvy Variety Bundle, where you get all 4 of the products, 2 stamp sets, a die set, and a pack of Designer Series paper. I'm going to be giving away a little something to go with it. But I like to build the suspense / I haven't finished the graphics for it yet. So I can't show you quite yet. Okay, let's see here. How do I want to do this? a little higher. Okay, so we're going to adhere these down. Oops. I got one of those things there. They tend to multiply, I'm telling you. They're everywhere. Okay, so we're going to go, I don't know if that's too low. I haven't really pushed down because I want to get like how high. Maybe I want to go a little higher. How about there? So that one goes straight on, as does the crumb cake. Whoop. These go right over one another. And I have, I don't know, maybe it's like a 1/2 inch or so distance, like I'm leaving between them. And then this guy, I'm going to adhere down with Stampin' Dimensionals. What did Heather say? Perfect, just trying to help a fellow Stampin' girl out. If you're not an English major, I am definitely not an English major. I like to like make my own words and descriptions and whatnot, you know. It's more fun. Although I'm learning so much homeschooling, let me tell you, I could tell you tons of stuff that I didn't know 6 weeks ago. Stuff that I never thought in my life I'd be learning about. Okay, so take the dimensionals off. I still want it at the same kind of height as the other one. How about that? Does that look good? Looks a little crooked, or is it me? I can't tell if it's crooked or if it's just my my eyes because there's curves everywhere. Okay. I actually was able to lift up the whole thing and kind of move it a little bit. Oh, I never do the birds. I forgot the birds. Okay, my vine, I'm literally going to do that with the vine. Just kind of have it sticking in. My sample one, I don't know. I guess I kind of have it in a little bit more, but depends. I probably should have done that first and then put my dimensionals down because it's kind of hard to, you know, some spots I have the dimensionals, but that's okay. So I literally am just sliding it underneath. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cheat. Where's my, did I take scissors out today? I don't think I did. I think this little guy is hitting a dimensional. We're going to do a little surgery. Let's see if I can get that in farther. Nope, which one's hitting? Oh, well. Maybe put that first would be my suggestion. Okay, let me get another piece of Whisper White here because we got to do our birds. I forgot about the birds. They're the cutest little addition. So 3 come in the stamp set. I'm only using 2. And of course, I have no clue what I did with the stamp set. I cannot find it. Well, it was here somewhere. Anyways, there are 3. I'm only using 2. And I'm going to ink them up in Memento Black as well. And stamp them down. Whoops. I have them both on my block because it's just easier to do 2 at once. And this time I'm going to use the Petal Pink. Oops. And the Crumb Cake. Whoops. To color it in. The tops of them I'm going to color with the Petal Pink. Again, starting with the light. Whoops. This one I should probably use the fine tip. It's because it's a little tighter in there for sure. Okay, that's the light. Very, very pale. So I almost always use the dark one, even sometimes more than the light one, just because the light one is pretty light. Okay. And then for the body, I'm going to use Crumb Cake. Do I have Crumb Cake? Dark Crumb Cake, light Crumb Cake. Okay. Always double check because sometimes the caps are very similar in color. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought this was Crumb Cake, and you accidentally grabbed like Soft Suede or something. And also when you're using the light and dark, like I'll start to apply it and I'm like, why is that so dark? Oh, sugars, I grabbed the dark one instead of the light one. I've done that so many times. So many times. Just call it a flourish and you sound like you know what you're talking about. I learned that from you, Amy, because sometimes it's like, how do you describe something? I don't know. It's like a little thing. It's like a flourish. Does sound a lot, does make you sound a lot smarter than just saying like thingy. Okay, so I always go light, dark, light with my markers. I don't know, it's just how I do it. Some people like to start with dark and then they go light. I don't know, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works for you, whatever feels right, go for it. So let's see here. I need which bird? This bird? Yep. And this one, I think. No, this one. That one. I always have to think they're backwards. So, let's see here. Off screen. Oh, I got these little things everywhere. They're going to multiply. These little, let's see, can I show you some? These little dots. They're like everywhere. when you use that one die, they definitely multiply for sure. Okay, so let me just hopefully I can do this right. If not, we're going to just go with one of the birds. Maybe I should have done these ahead of time. It's okay. Line them up. Okay, run them through. You grab the dark one in error too. Yep. Yep. Or then you're like, I meant to do that. And then you're like, try and somehow make it work. Okay, so here's our birds. They're super cute. Super cute. This would be a cute baby card. Obviously with a different sentiment, but a cute baby card. Someone's expecting a little girl. Okay, this little guy's gonna go next to the sentiment to the left with a dimensional. He's kind of like looking over, like tweet, tweet, tweet. And then this guy is hanging out on the branches down below. Look, one of those big dimensionals like perfectly fits. And he's going to be sitting over here. Oops. There we go. And I want to make sure he's in. And there we go. Like that. Okay. It's simpler. There's no ribbon. There's no bells or whistles. No embellishments. But I think it's really fun. I think these curves really add just another element that we don't necessarily have right now and makes the cards very unique and different. Something with a little extra texture, a great fun sentiment. So I think these bundles are going to be ones that you're definitely going to want to pick up. All the details are on my blog. And again, available beginning November 3rd. If you happen to be watching and you have yet to leave a comment, quickly do so. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to throw all your names in a hat and pick out one for someone to win tonight's card. And as always, if you have any questions, certainly let me know. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining me tonight, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.